Welcome or welcome back to A Game of Fangs and Thrones. My name's Hannah. This is another installment of Read 9 by 1. And I am really liking what I've been reading so far. And it also feels like ages since I've done a sit-down video, so here we go. So, to kick off this video, you guys, if you've been around a while, you know how this works. In an effort to cut down my TBR and to curb my book buying obsession, I've implemented a little challenge for myself entitled Read 9 by 1, and it is what it says on the tin. I have to read 9 books before I can buy one, and that includes audio, physical and digital, although the audiobooks I just tend to buy whenever my credit from Audible comes in, but it counts against the 9. And I can only buy, and in terms of buying the books, I can only buy a standalone. I have changed it slightly. I can only buy a standalone or start a new series if I have finished a previous series. That is because, you can see that I have started Assassin's Quest, The Elderling by Robin Hobb. We have the Sarah J. Maas collection. Admittedly, I am almost up to date with that one. We have the Cosmere just there. We have the Born season. So, I am a big series reader. I start series and then just forget to finish them. So this is, let me just sort out my collar. So this is my way of actually, trying to finish what I start. There we go. So let's dive right in. So the first book in this video is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. I've read this on ebook through Kindle, and it is the third in the Elderling series, the conclusion to the Farseer trilogy, and I am counting this as a continuation because I do intend to read all of the Elderlings in order. So I'm not counting this as finishing a series. I gave this, I can't remember if I gave it a 4 or a 5. Oh, I gave it a 4-star on Copilot. It came out with 8.5. It is a conclusion, so it does wrap things up nicely. I can't talk too much about it for spoilers of the first 2 books, which are just here. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Fitz goes through an absolute lot. He is so worn down, and but I liked it. I did. This got a couple of 8s and some 9s, but on enjoyment it got a 10. I use the Copilot from Book Roast's rating system. I think it just breaks things down nicely. But that got a 4-star. If you don't know, the Farseer trilogy follows Fitz, who is the bastard son of Prince Chivalry, who upon finding out about Fitz promptly abdicates and then is, I can't remember if he's murdered or he just dies, but that leaves Fitz in a bit of an awkward position. On the one hand, he is royal, so people do have to treat him with some level of respect, but on the other, he is a commoner. He is expendable, basically. So the king, whose name is Shrewd, literally he's called King Shrewd, he decides that he is going to use Fitz's unique position and train him up as an assassin, hence the title Royal Assassin, Assassin's Apprentice and all of that, and Assassin's Quest. So they are the Fitz books, basically, and it's just the story of Fitz finding out who he is, what he is, and it is told in first person, so it is very singular, and we only care about what Fitz cares about, so we don't get too much of the magic, how that works. But I do know in the following series, like the Very Wild, basically the ones that don't follow Fitz as much are third person and multi-perspective, which I do like in an epic fantasy like this. But the next book, unfortunately, excuse me, the next book, unfortunately, is a DNF, and that is Cities of Dead, which is book 3 of 4 in the Casquette Girls by Alice Arden. Now, I loved the first book. I thought it was really interesting and intriguing, but I just couldn't get into this one. So it got a 1 star. And I did get to page 82, and my little note was, unfortunately, a DNF at 82 pages. Just too much going on, and there was too many POV switches for me personally. And I think I left it too long between reading the second and the third book. But then we have another Kindle book. We have Between Ink and Shadows by Melissa Wright. Now, I have read from this author before and didn't enjoy her work, but didn't realise that until after I'd finished this one. But this is a very tame mafia-style fantasy romance following Nimona, who is indebted to a mysterious society. And basically, I'm sitting on a coat hanger. Anyway, we're following Nimona, who is indebted to a mysterious society and is employed as a thief, and it just felt flat. It's got a 3 star, and I won't be continuing with the series. And then we go on to our physical books. So we have The Lost Girl King by Catherine Doyle. This is a middle grade set around Ireland and the land of eternal youth, Tir na Nog. This is basically Amy and Liam's story. They are brother and sister and are shipped off to Ireland for, I think it's like a half term rather than a summer term holidays, with their gran, and their gran is obsessed with Tir na Nog. And in the way that most middle grades go, Amy and Liam find themselves in that enchanted world. However, that world is dying. A big scary magician has cursed and chained the sun, and this is the story of Amy and Liam basically figuring out what's going on and how to fix it. It is a standalone, as far as I'm aware, and this got 3 stars. Now, this was a stronger, better 3 stars than Between Ink and Shadows. I enjoyed it while I was reading it, and it was a fun little romp through Irish mythology. I just didn't completely fall in love with it. But I did like Amy and Liam. They do have their differences, as you would expect siblings to have, but they came together in the end. Yes, it was a little bit predictable, but it's middle grade. Then we have The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. This is a genre-bending mystery with a bit of paranormal horror set on a boat with a little bit of a Sherlockian influence. But basically, in this one, it's like 1630s. Samuel Pepys, who was the world's greatest detective at the time, is imprisoned on the boat and being transported to Amsterdam for a crime he may or may not have committed. The ship, the Sardam, is being haunted, basically. And then, you get these omens, these mysterious whispers, the livestock's dead, and then a person is murdered. So Pipps is imprisoned, but it's up to his friend and a bodyguard, Orent Hayes, who is connected to the mystery in more ways than one, to solve it. I thought this was very intriguing, very well written. The ending did confuse me a touch. I did have to read it a few times to get to grips with what was happening. But overall, this got a 4 star and perfect for spooky season. It just had that vibe. Then we go into October. My first October book was technically a longer finish, but it is an audiobook. It is Beneath the Keep by Erica Johansson. This is the standalone prequel to her Tearling series, and I didn't think, personally, that we needed a prequel. I was happy with how that series ended, and the audiobook narrator was annoying me. I didn't like her. She said room weird, and it pulled me out of the story every time. But this got 3 stars. But basically, this is the prequel. It is the events leading up to the beginning of the Tearling series, where we meet Kelsey. This is Kelsey's birth, who her father is, and why things happened the way they did. And I didn't like it. I slogged through that. And it's not the fault that it's audiobook, because I am actually enjoying audiobooks at the moment. I think it's just, I didn't particularly think we needed a prequel. But I did finish it, and I did finish it. Technically, that does mean I've finished the series. But moving on, we have a chunker. We have House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, the sequel to House of Sky. No, House of. What's it called? I've forgotten. House of Earth and Blood, which is the Crescent City series, basically. This being a sequel, can't talk too much about it, but I was disappointed. This only got a 3-star on Corpal. I think it just didn't do much. It is a weaker book. But that being said, I am still wanting to see what happens in the Sky and Breath book. No. The next book, I've forgotten what it's called. But it has a pretty cover. But especially with the ending of this one. The ending pulled it back. If you know, you know. But this was just fine. It didn't grip me as much as the first book, but I think it's just suffering from second book syndrome. But we shall reserve judgment until we see the third book, because second books are hard to write, I think. But we have a 3-star coming in at 6.8 on Corpile if anybody's interested. But basically, this follows Bryce Quinlan, who is half fae, half mortal, in a technologically advanced magical society that is reminiscent of our time now, but with magical influences and creatures running around doing their thing. Now, in the first book, we meet Bryce, and she is basically called upon to solve a murder because of her connection to, I think it's either the suspected murderer and the victim. It's basically her best friend that's murdered, and she has to solve it. But obviously, we can't let a dangerous, fire-heady, hot-headed half-fae go through that alone. So in comes Hunt Alethar, who is tasked with keeping her safe and solving the murder, basically. And he is a fallen angel, and sparks fly. This is the Fallout continuation and conclusion of the Fallout, basically, and it just felt flat. Then we have another 4-star. We have Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This was, I don't know what I expected out of this one, but I did really enjoy it. In this, we follow Kaya, who is the marsh girl, basically. She is intelligent and self-reliant, but because of the influences of her town, because this is in, there's 2 timelines. There's one set in 1969 and one set a little bit earlier. It's probably about the 50s, 40s, I think. So because she's living out in the swamp, in the boggy marsh, she is outcasted. She is an outsider, and because of that, people don't trust her. Because she can't spell, and because she's ridiculed in the one time she goes to school, she then avoids the truancy officers and then, lives out on her own. And then in the second timeline, in 1969, we find that Chase Andrews has been murdered, and obviously Kaya is pretty much our only suspect. So what happens is we learn through Kaya what's happening in the past, and we learn why, basically. And then in the present, or the 60s timeline, we find out the fallout basically, and I really enjoyed this. This is a lesson in not taking people at face value, and you know, nature versus nurture. And it was very well written. It had a slow, the atmosphere was just on point, and it's slightly weird reading it in October when this is warm and muggy and it's rainy outside. But anyway, the last book of the 9 is unfortunately a 3-star, but you can't win them all, and that is The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared by Jonas Jonasson. I have read Jonasson's work before. I read The Girl Who Saved the King of Sweden, and I did enjoy that one a tiny bit more. I think this one just, it felt a little bit too far-fetched. Yes, I know that's the whole point, and we read books to escape. Excuse me. But we still have to have a level of believability. Now, I can believe that Alan, our main character, did do all of the stuff he did in the past, but the present is what's getting me a little bit about it. But basically, I think everybody knows this one. We follow Alan Carlson, who's waiting for his 100th birthday party. Why was that so hard to say? But he doesn't want it. He just wants to be left alone. So he, quite randomly it appears, decides to climb out the window and go on a little bit of an adventure. Now, what follows are car chases, a stolen bag, money, not murder. Oh no, there are murders, and an elephant. So, it was enjoyable when I was reading. I didn't find it hilarious, but it did tickle me in places. So, I gave it a 3-star. And then for the book that I bought Restless Slumber by KJ Sutton on ebook, which is where I'm trying to buy most of my books now. And this is the sequel to Fortuna Sworn. Now, Fortuna, this is a dark romance. Trigger warnings, explicit scenes, so just be very wary going into it, please. But basically, Fortuna is what's known as a nightmare, and she has the ability to make people's nightmares come to life. She can get in your head, find out what you're most afraid of, and make that play out. And because of that, she is very dangerous, very hunted. I think she's like, her family are like the only ones left. Well, there's just her and her brother. Her brother was kidnapped or missing, and Fortuna has basically never given up the hope that she will be able to find him. So that's where our story opens. Fortuna is looking for her brother. She comes across, I can't remember his name, but she comes across an elf fae type character who says, yep, I know where your brother is, but to find him, you have to marry me. And Restless Slumber is basically the continuation of that. And what I'm hoping is to see some more character development, see these relationships change, blossom. I know they're not going to be healthy, I say in brackets. There are going to be trigger warnings and power dynamics at play, but I am still very intrigued to see where that goes. So, let me know if you agree with these ratings, let me know what you've been buying, and let me know if you've read what you've been reading and if you've read any of these, and I shall see you in the next one. So, with that, give this video a like if you like it, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see this, talk about these, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.